What's good? It's your boy Fanon. Gonna talk about the middleweight division today in this video and the potential matchup between Daniel Jacobs and Jermall Charlo. The trainer Andre Rozier, the trainer of Danny Jacobs, came out and said that he thinks that he really likes the fight between Jermall Charlo and Danny Jacobs or Daniel Jacobs, and that he thinks that Daniel Jacobs is a guy to give Jermall Charlo a good wake up call. Now, I'm not so sure that Daniel Jacobs is the guy to do that with Jermall Charlo, but I would absolutely love to see the fight. And I'm not sure it's probably not going to be a fight that can happen because Jermall Charlo is the mandatory for the WBC belt. He's in the same situation as Derevyanchenko is for the IBF with Gennady Golovkin. So I just don't see Jermall Charlo going out of his way to try to set up a fight with Daniel Jacobs before he's able to get a title shot at 160. And I mean for the WBC title. Now Danny Jacobs, interesting too, man, because see Demetrius, the number one challenger is two number one challengers have connections. I do believe connections to the trainer for Danny Jacobs, which is the IBF number one challenger, Sergey Derevyanchenko. And I think also that Demetrius Andrade has a connection to him. Obviously, Derevyanchenko is trained by Andre Rozier. But I do believe also that Demetrius Andrade might train in that gym with him, or he's got some type of relationship with him, like a long-standing relationship with Andre Rozier. And that might be why Andre Rozier would be more inclined to have Danny Jacobs fight Jermall Charlo. Now, before I get into this conversation, man, and talk about the 160-pound picture, I definitely want to say thank you to everybody that attend the live streams and support the causes that we have, that we support in the super chat. The best way to know about the live stream, which I believe is the best feature of this channel, because you get an opportunity to talk to a lot of interact with a lot of very knowledgeable boxing fans. Many of them are content creators, that you can watch, that you can be referred to their videos and get a chance to hear what they have to say on a lot of these subjects as well on their channels. It's just a very good environment to have a good conversation with knowledgeable boxing fans. So I hope that you accept my invitation to attend those live streams. And also the best way to know about the live streams when they occur are to subscribe and hit the bell icon. You subscribe and hit the bell icon, then you should be notified of when they occur, and you should be able to and you'll know when they happen, because I don't always do them at a regularly scheduled time. But definitely I'm trying to do one later today, so I hope you accept my invitation to attend. So, well, first, let me go into this article that was put out. And the quotes from Andre Rozier. It's by Steve Kim, and it was in the boxingscene.com. Trainer Andre Rozier is one of the most honest and forthright individuals in the sport of boxing. And when you ask him about Daniel Jacobs, who's 34-2 with 29 KOs, recent victory over Selecki, he had mixed reviews. Danny was trying a little bit too hard to impress the crowd at the Barclays Center, and him doing that was a little on the reckless side. He could have been a lot sharper, but he wanted to put on a knockout show for people there, and he was trying a bit too hard instead of just flowing and having a good time boxing, Rozier told boxingscene.com. Selecki came in as a sizable underdog, but he fought gamely and had his moments. He was caught with a few shots that I didn't particularly like, but he was telling me, I'm okay. The guy doesn't have good shots. I'm just going to keep working until I get close enough to do what I want to do. And in doing that, if he would have just been a little more relaxed, what happened in the 12th round would have happened a lot sooner, opined Rozier. Speaking of Jacobs scoring a knockdown in the final round versus the brave Polish fighter to punctuate his unanimous decision victory. But you need fights like that. He was a tough guy. Selecki's not the type of guy that Jermall Charlo has been fighting. Out of all the middleweights, who did he fight? I think Selecki was the toughest guy out of them all. He was a lot tougher than Charlo's opponent, Hugo Centeno, and he was definitely, not to take anything from Vanis Martirosyan, but Vanis was nowhere ready to perform at the level he was asked to perform on Saturday, said Rozier, referring to Gennady Golovkin's second round stoppage of Martirosyan, who was coming off a 2-year layoff. There's been some barking about Jacobs and Charlo. Of that possible matchup, Rozier states, Danny wants it, and whatever Danny wants in terms of an opponent, my job as a trainer and his mentor is to prepare him for it. And actually myself, I'm a bit excited about it because I think they need a good wake-up call, and I think Danny is just the person to provide that for him. Now, there's been, of course, people know that there was that little bit of drama that took place. I think that was right before the Luis Ortiz. I believe that was before the Luis Ortiz Deontay Wilder fight, where Jamal Charlo. I think it might have been Jermall, but no, it's probably Jermall. Jermall was going off. Jamal Charlo was going off about, being the king of New York. He said, "Where's Danny? Where's Danny?" Some said that effect. You guys can go to fighthype.com. You can go to different channels and look that up if you haven't seen it. And then after the fight, that was in the lead up, maybe before the weigh-in or something like that, and then the next day or something after the fight, Jermall Charlo was sitting up against a wall talking to reporters, and Danny Jacobs came by and said, "Hey, man, oh, man, look, that he lucked out." Because I think Jermall Charlo might have said that he was the king of Brooklyn or king of New York or whatever. Good, just talk, all that talking that people do. So Daniel Jacobs got in his face, not too harshly, but they exchanged words. There's a lot of speculation about, and people who commented that Danny Jacobs has somehow who had to a degree punked Jermall Charlo. And, so all that stuff went down. And now you're having these conversations about who would, about a fight happening between the two. My take on it is this, that it seems to me, just by if you look at the rankings, that I don't know who is Danny Jacobs going to fight. That's a top guy. Danny Jacobs, to his credit, is the number in the top three, rated in the top three by all the major sanctioning bodies. He's number 3 with the WBC. He's a number one spot for the WBA. He has a number 3 spot for Gennady for the IBF, and he has the number 2 spot for the WBO. So he's very well positioned he's positioned in the top 3 of every sanctioning body. But if you look at the people who are in that sanctioning body with him, with the exception of the WBA, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for him because Derevyanchenko is he's the number 1 for the WBA, right? So he's in position to become the mandatory for Gennady Golovkin there. Derevyanchenko fights with the same trainer, and I think he's got some type of relationship, Andre Rozier, with Demetrius Andrade. So other than continuing to fight guys like, and they can say what they want about Selecki, how good Selecki was, I'm pretty sure that Selecki was a 154 pounder, or at least he was fighting for a period of time at 154 pounds. Now, I do believe he's a good, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the dude is a good fighter. I thought he was a good fighter before this fight happened. But, I mean, he's not a world beater. And if you look at what Selecki has, I mean, the other opponents that Daniel Jacobs has had, the two best fighters he fought, he lost to. Gennady Golovkin and Demetrius Pirog. Those are the two best fighters that he fought, and he lost to him. I'm not quite sure why, Khalid, what is so great about Khalid Truax, Sergio Mora? Peter Quillen at the time was doing his thing. Kid Charlo was doing his thing at the time. But, 2 wins over Sergio Mora and Luis Arias. I mean, that's not a killer record, man. Now, he did really well against Gennady Golovkin, and I think that Daniel Jacobs is a good fighter. But when his trainer talks about the fact that, he was trying to go for the knockout win, he's trying to, be exciting and really press the fight so he could be exciting. That's what they said in the Arias fight. This is the second fight in a row that he didn't look good. He didn't look good against Selecki. He didn't look particularly good against Arias. He looked good towards it. He looked better than people expected against Gennady Golovkin. But he hasn't knocked out anybody. He hasn't had a knockout in about 2 years. And his claim to fame truly is losing well to Gennady Golovkin. And then in the next fight that Gennady Golovkin fought after Daniel Jacobs, and I do believe, let me make sure that that was the next fight that he fought after Daniel Jacobs. Yep, it was Sal Alvarez. He had a draw. And he didn't look very good against Kell Brook. He did get the knockout against Kell Brook, but in the beginning of that fight, until that knockout happened, he wasn't looking particularly impressive against that guy as well. So I don't think that, I'm not buying what Andre Rozier is selling here, man. Now, if you look at Jermall Charlo's only had 2 fights. He's had 2 fights at middleweight. Before that, he knocked out Julian Rock Williams, who's a good fighter. Austin Trout, Cornelius Bundridge. He's knocked out. He's had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of his last 6 fights have ended in knockouts. I mean, he's looking solid. He's doing what he's supposed to do against the people that he's in the ring with. Now, is he the most proven fighter in the world? No. Jermall Charlo's not the most proven fighter in the world. But neither is Daniel Jacobs. And quite honestly, at middleweight, nobody is. That's how I see it. I don't think that there's any fighter in 160 pound that is particularly well proven. Gennady Golovkin has had 3 of the belts, but who is he? I mean, who is he? What is the quality of opposition that Gennady Golovkin looked spectacular against? He didn't look. Vanis Martirosyan, right? Hasn't fought in 2 years. Is a former sparring partner that hadn't fought in 2 years. I don't think he won a fight in 2 years. It might have been longer since he won a fight. I don't know. But he has a guy that lost to Demetrius Andrade and lost to Jamal Charlo at 154 pounds. He drew against Sal Alvarez. He got a questionable win over Danny Jacobs. But then other than the win that he got against Daniel Jacobs, because you really can't say much about a draw with Sal Alvarez. Who's his biggest win? He's got wins over Dominic Wade, David Lemieux, Willie Monroe, Martin Murray, Marco Antonio Barrera. What? Matthew Macklin? Ishida? I mean, nobody has proven themselves. Nobody has proven themselves at 160 pounds like that. For Rozier to say that Daniel Jacobs is somehow some major level up from what his record is significantly better. I think that's what he's implying than Jermall Charlo's record is. I don't see it. I'm sure some other people might see it, but then, like I said, I don't think anybody's proven. You have Billy Joe Saunders, right? Billy Joe Saunders, who's Billy Joe Saunders' biggest win? David Lemieux? David Lemieux and Chris Eubank? I don't really see that as being some killer record. Sal Alvarez? What has he done in 100? Who did he beat at middleweight? Cotto, 100, a blown up 140 pound fighter. I don't think any of these guys, any of them, at 160 pounds have really distinguished themselves, which is why these guys need to fight each other. Now, I don't mind Jermall Charlo fighting. Like I said, I would love to see the fight. If it was announced, I would be more than happy to. I'd be happy if it was announced that Jermall Charlo was going to fight Daniel Jacobs. And I can't say for sure that Jermall Charlo would beat Danny Jacobs, even though I'll tell you this. If Daniel Jacobs gets hit with the same, if he's that open for a 1-2, is open for a quick 1-2 against Jermall Charlo as he was against Selecki, it's going to be a short night, man. It's going to be a short night. And I don't see Daniel Jacobs, but I got to tell you though, man, I like how Danny Jacobs can switch from orthodox to southpaw. But the problem that I just have is that I think Jermall Charlo is strong. And he has, with the exception of Gennady Golovkin, I think he's got the most power of anybody. I guess maybe I got to look a little bit more closely at Sergey Deverenchenko, but I think Jermall Charlo is probably the biggest hitter, has the biggest power at middleweight, with the exception of maybe Gennady Golovkin. But the difference between Jermall Charlo and Gennady Golovkin for me is that Jermall Charlo is faster, and he's faster, he's more athletic, and he starts quicker. And I would just love to see all these fights. But what are we going to get out of Abel Sanchez and Gennady Golovkin? Everybody's going to want to get their hands on these belts, and these belts are going to be up for grabs before too long, because I don't think Gennady Golovkin has maybe another year at 160 pounds or fighting. That he can say what he wants to say about, because his camp has come out and said they've got more options other than Canelo Alvarez. No, they don't. They do not have any other option for what they want. Right? They have more options. There are more people that they can fight. Other people that they can fight. They can fight. He's the WBC, WBA, and IBF champion. He can fight Deverenchenko. He can fight Jacobs. He can fight Jermall Charlo. He's got pretty much all of the top guys in the middleweight division are in mandatory positions to fight him already. With the exception of maybe Daniel Jacobs, because that might be Murata, right? But I don't know if the WBA's actually asked for a mandatory. But the WBC, when Jermall Charlo, actually both fights, when Jermall Charlo beat Centino and when Jermall Charlo beat Sebastian Heelan, both of those were for him to be in a position to be a mandatory for Gennady Golovkin for the WBC belt. So he has the option to fight any of these guys. But he ain't got an option to make that money like he does against Canelo Alvarez. And that's what, if you listen to Abel Sanchez, that's what Abel Sanchez cares about. It's about a show. It's about who can put butts in the seat. Right? And first of all, I don't see Gennady Golovkin as being somebody that is really, I mean, where you're gonna try to make like a pay-per-view money like you can get at Canelo. Come on, man. They probably did more money. They probably did. Canelo Alvarez, Gennady Golovkin probably did more pay-per-view buys than Gennady Golovkin got on HBO for free. So let's just get that out of the way. He's gonna be fighting. I bet $100 to a donut that he fights Canelo Alvarez next. And if the only reason that Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin doesn't happen next is because Canelo Alvarez doesn't want it to happen. Other than that, it's going to happen. But, as far as Danny Jacobs and Jermall Charlo, I'd love to see it in the interim, but don't expect to see it happen. Don't expect for Jermall Charlo to go fight somebody if he doesn't have to, while he's waiting to get his shot at the WBC belt. And with that, I'm out. Peace.